All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our new episode of Behind the Screen. I know Crypts and Cryptids has been the it's been a summer, let's say that. We had the Roll for Cake finale, and we had so many people that were there for that we kind of didn't have enough moderators to keep doing the show. So we had to postpone, and now we're back with most of the people that were supposed to be in that show. A couple people couldn't handle the scheduling, but we are here today with some amazing DMs, and I cannot wait to ask some of the questions that I have because I have some weird ones today. So this is going to be amazing. But we have Randy, we have Darren Kinsler today. We have welcoming back Jay, Dark Crescent Studio, and we have Screen Cap. And for her first appearance as a DM, Nimue. So I would love to go around the table and hear from you guys what what your name is. You can plug anything that you want to plug for our audience, and tell us a little bit about your DMing experience, such as when did you start or what drew you to it. For example, I'm Nerdy Teacher. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, everything as Nerdy Teacher. And I began DMing in 2017 after two pretty crappy DMs. So I kind of did the Thanos fine, I'll do it myself thing. Next on the Twitch screen is Randy. Randy, would you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Hey, so I'm Randy. Really big stretch there. I am a DM. I am a dad. I am a homesteader, and I have been playing since a long time ago. And I think somebody at my lunch table back in 1986 brought a book called Palladium to the table, and kind of got hooked to the TTRPGs from there on. I've played everything from AD&D all the way up to 5e, and I've been really going hard at DMing over the last like 6-7 years. So that's kind of me.
I love it. I made a face when you said 1986 because I was like, that's older than me. Wow, you have so much experience. But that's an awesome thing. Jay, would you tell our audience a little bit more about you?
I'm Jay. I run Dark Crescent Studio. I'm full-time artist, dice maker, wood burner, polymer clay artist. I am a jack of all trades. I've been DMing somewhere between 3 and 5 years. Been playing not quite as long as Randy, but long enough to make me feel old. I kind of run a weird gamut of things. Like I've run 5e, we've played Pathfinder, I've run Bunkers and Badasses, we've done Vampire. We run a fun amount of weird stuff. You guys can find me. I know my link tree got dropped. I'm on pretty much everything but TikTok because I hate having to make videos of things. Just under Dark Crescent Studio. And this weekend, if anybody's in the Northern Ohio, PA, Southern Michigan area and wants to come see me, this is the final weekend of the Great Lakes Medieval Fair where I am vending and inside a giant mimic.
Ooh, I need pictures of that.
Sounds dope.
All right.
When I got the building, I couldn't resist. It was just a little bit too on the nose to turn it into a giant mimic.
We need pictures and we need them in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Can do.
Darren Kinsler.
I'll take them in the morning.
Hello,
Awesome.
all. As it says, I am Darren Kinsler. You can find me as such without any sort of spaces or punctuation on TikTok and Instagram, pretty much everywhere else. I started DMing about 5 years ago, both out of necessity and intrigue. I am an actor by trade, going into my last year of college for acting. And I also do some writing on the side, so DMing sort of felt like a great crossover of those two things. I am, like I said, yeah, I'm an actor. I also do stage combat stuff, so the combat aspects of Dungeons and Dragons and other TTRPGs were intriguing because I've had several conversations with other people in the stage combat community about how to make descriptions more accurate to what actual fighting is like, and also what game systems most accurately reflect real life combat strategy. So that's me.
That is interesting. I never thought about it that way. All right. Then not my nemesis, but yes. Screen Cap, you want to tell people about you?
I am the TikToker formerly known as Cap Without a Country, usually found in the driver's seat of a mid-sized sedan, currently glassesless in the back seat of a mid-sized sedan. I've been playing since August of 2022. I've been DMing since August of 2022, and it should be pointed out that my not nemesis and co-host here, so Tiff and Nimue, it is our 2-year stream anniversary. Because on August 9th of 2022, we played our first session of Strahd. And that was I'd say the beginning of the end, but that was the beginning of the middle for me. Because then later that month, I started DMing for my then 12-year-old, her cousin, and their friend. And that unbridled chaos has been going on for the last 2 years as well.
Very good. And of course, Nimue.
Hi. So I'm definitely the newest DM here. I have been a DM for a total of 18 days. And I am a DM because of this show and because of this group. Everybody has been lovingly pestering me for the last 2 years since Strahd, saying like, oh, now it's her time to play or her time to DM. And I'm like, no, thank you, but no, not interested. And I kept that belief up for quite a long time. I was like, that's a lot. It's very intimidating. I'm not interested in it. I really like to play. Don't think I ever want to take the reins on anything. And then in April, I was driving back from Washington with my husband, and you guys were doing the talk show, and I had you in my ear, and I'm listening to all these amazing people talking about these amazing experiences that they'd had DMing. And I was like, God damn it, fine. So I decided, because Cap had run a one-shot for me last year, in his first ever adult game DMing, that I would give him back that experience.
It wasn't an adult game.
Well, not
Yeah,
DMing for
teenagers.
teenagers, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I'm gonna return the favor. So in secret, I started planning a game. And then when I went over to North Carolina for the Roll for Cake finale, I surprised him with 3 battle maps, 4 minis, and a fully fleshed out one-shot. So, yeah. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't listened to the show and listened to all the amazing experiences that everybody who's been on the show have given.
And I didn't know that until yesterday when she told me. And I think I teared up a little bit because I was like, this is exactly what I wanted with Behind the Screen, is not only to just have fun and talk to other dungeon masters and hear amazing stories, but to inspire and help others who are on the cusp of being a dungeon master. And I remember it was the last session that we had before the Roll for Cake ending. The last question was, what would you say to somebody who wants to be a dungeon master? And the answer is, just do it. You're never going to be perfect at it. And no matter how many years experience you have, just do it. And if your players have fun, you're doing great.
I have to say the best part of that too. was Cap
Okay.
driving me to his house, and we were having a conversation, and I was like, yeah, and see, this is why I'm never gonna DM. It just doesn't interest me as I'm sitting there like, "Mwah."
She sold that lie for 4
The
hours.
trickery.
I did. I told that lie for 4 hours. It was great.
We have a conversation in chat right now about adult games. Lady Cass says, I'm from the South. If it's not spicy, it's not worth it. I don't think you understand what spicy means. I'm kidding. All right. So today,
I mean, if we're
would
going
love
that
to
level
get
of
some
spice,
questions from chat if you have any. We have a link that I hope either Knight or Jordan will be putting in. There we go. Haha. So the link is where you can leave us a question if you want, and I will take a look at that. But I had an interesting conversation the other day with another dungeon master, and he told me a couple of the weirdest things that his players ever threw at him. And now I wrote it down so that I could ask you guys, what would your rulings be on these scenarios? So the first one actually was a question that was left towards the end of a stream and we didn't have time to get to it. So I'm going to give this to the DMs here. If a druid is in wild shape and gets pregnant, what happens?
I'm gonna pull up some info to aid my answer to this. Interesting.
This is a great way to note that dungeon masters have the weirdest search histories in the world, don't we?
Truly.
Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
writers and dungeon masters. Yeah, writers and dungeon masters. Like, how long does it take a pool of dragon blood to dry?
Thing that I have actually looked up for the book for writing. Yep.
For example,
my-
let's say that they wild shape into a bear, they run into a male bear, they have a evening very similar to Baldur's Gate 3. And then it's so, I don't know how they would find out. Like, this is a question that we'd have to think of. Would it be something that would be known immediately because they can't revert back? Is it something that's even possible? It's, what would your fun rule of cool ruling be here?
Okay.
I mean,
so
my brain.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say my brain goes to like Norse mythology, Loki type stuff.
Yep.
Like
Right.
that's probably how I would rule it.
I think I'm just like reading all of the wording in wild shape. If I were to go based on simply words, I could see the argument being made that while in wild shape you can't get pregnant because the first word says you magically assume the shape of a beast that you have seen before, which I could see being read as you aren't like actually that creature with all of its anatomy and complexities, but assume the physical appearance and abilities. But then you have to ask, does abilities come with those other abilities? I think
when you wild shape, do you wild shape at the genetic level?
Yeah. Does your DNA change, or is it simply a magical sort of like almost like a glamour?
Yeah. Well, and then that gets into like the idea of, because arguably, I guess in D&D, like humanoid is all genetically compatible, because you can have half elves, half orcs, you can have, and then I guess presumably like beast is a different genetic set, monstrosity is a different genetic set, because if a dragonborn and an elf can have a child, then it's like, okay, where's the line between what can and cannot produce viable offspring?
I would argue that because when you wild shape, you lose the ability to speak and you gain the hit points and the attributes that that animal has, the abilities. Like, I would say that you can, because I feel like you are at a like genetic level turning into that creature, because you lose all of the things that you have as a humanoid or whatever. So I don't think it's glamour, because like a glamour type thing, because of that specifically. Like, if you kept the same hit points and still had the ability to cast spells or speak or whatever, then yes. But because you lose all that, I would argue that it could work.
Yeah. I think what's really funny is if I Googled, which I did in fact Google, can you get pregnant in wild shape? The very top link is a Reddit post that begs an entirely different question, which equally freaks me out. What happens to the baby if a pregnant druid wild shapes?
Wild shapes back. Oh,
So
yeah.
so your druid is pregnant normally. So say you have a half-elf druid, half-elf baby in the womb, wild shapes into an owl bear.
Now that wouldn't worry me, because in my mind it's like, okay, at least there's room. But what if they wild shape into a mouse?
Mouse.
A mouse, sure. Or does the wild shape affect the child too? And now the rat just has is rat pregnant, or the mouse is mouse pregnant.
I'm gonna make the argument, if you're a druid, a humanoid druid, and you're pregnant, you are physiologically connected to the fetus. So when you wild shape, I'm gonna argue that fetus also wild shapes with you, because it's part of you. It's physically connected to you.
I think the same. I think I would make the same ruling in that scenario.
Yeah. Now,
Or does the
zeroing
child just go in? Or does the child just go into that little pocket where all your clothing is going at the same time? I mean, is that actually something that would
Your fetus
happen?
goes into a little pocket dimension while you wild shape?
There you go.
Oh no!
Oh,
Is
look,
hanging
an
out, is this
appropriate
the pocket
phrase.
dimension where all the fetuses go? So they're all hanging out there together like, sorry, mom's in the middle of combat right now.
Yeah, does that make druids that wild shape while pregnant marsupials? If their childs are going into pockets? I don't know.
At this point, I feel like
Imagine
it's
all those. Go
probably
ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, at this point, it's probably the best and only acceptable phrasing for hiatus the fetus.
The first answer is you have this conversation with your player and determine what your game is going to do. If the player's cool with, then you get into ridiculousness. But
yeah, then you determine how long you want to spend on this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
there's
think
a
a roll
lot
with
more coming. Just
D100
be
and
ready.
there's a percentage
All right,
chance.
so we've got in chat uterus, the ultimate pocket dimension. Okay. In my mind, I'm thinking of those spells that are like, if something goes wrong, you get transported to a random dimension. Now there's just a dimension possibility of just these floating fetuses that are just popping in and out of existence as their druidic mothers are wild shaping.
Darren, based on
what if
his
it doesn't go
background,
back to the right spot? Jesus.
That used to be
I love
called
and hate this.
limbo. That used to be called limbo until the Roman Catholic Church got rid of it.
I love and hate this so much.
Also, Night.
No, we're taking it. We are taking it. It's limbo is ours now.
It's either limbo
Limbo
or
is
it's
just
like
about the
a level of hell that's just for like psychic damage. Like the babies are fine, but it's just like people are like psychically damaged of just like these horrific fetuses just coming in and out of existence around them.
Wait, is it
a level
is it
of
like
hell where you take psychic damage? My relationship with Cap? I'm kidding. All right.
Is it a dimension of potentiality? Is it where like things that could be but aren't exist over there?
Oh, it's like a dream, sort of a dream-ish realm, some sort of like Kalishtar, like oh god. Our fetus is just the dreams of human beings. Ah.
So I eventually want to run a dream. It's called Nightmares and Necromancers, but it's a mini campaign in the dream realm, and I have created a mirror race to the Kalashtar, because the Kalashtar are like the descendants of Dream with humanoid parents. In the dream realm, there are creatures that are the same, but like a human parent who physically went into the dream world and had a child with a dream creature that exists there.
Interesting.
okay. Oh my god.
I
We
just
could be
made
here
it
for
worse.
hours on this.
No, I have to say this. I just made it worse in my mind.
No,
So if it's a pocket dimension, it makes me think
do
it makes me think that bags of holding are made out of placenta.
You did in fact
done it.
make it worse for everyone. Yay!
You are officially a DM. You are officially fully a DM. Achievement unlocked.
Mic drop.
Oh, also, this is unrelated, but I did think I forgot to mention I use they them pronouns. I don't think I said it in my intro. So
Thank you for telling us. Go from protection. Okay. All right. Well, on that note,
Mm-hmm.
we got excited with that one. All right. I do love how Knight mentioned that this could be the start of Cat Girls or Owlbear Girls, which now that's a thing in my head. So thank you for that. And then there was one more. I can't. I must have lost it. All right. So, unless there's anything that you really have to say about this one, someone's mentioned in chat. I didn't think they could shift when they were pregnant. There are no official rules, I don't think, but a lot of people do play it that way. For example, changelings. If they're in female form and they become pregnant, a lot of people say, well, then maybe you can't change to a male form after that. That's all that I've read, because I did some research for this too. But yeah, it's up to the DM. So I was kind of curious what would happen if I brought this up. Oh, okay. This one might be a little, what do I want to say? More PG. Monks have Deflect Missile, right? Deflect Missile as an ability. What happens if someone targets a monk with Magic Missile?
It's not something they can catch.
They had a player argue that it was a missile.
Yes, but I would go against the fact that the wording on Magic Missile specifically says that the only thing that can block it is a shield spell.
I agree. I do agree.
I'm reading D&D Beyond description of Magic Missile at the moment. It says you create 3 glowing darts of magical force. Each dart hits the creature of your choice that you can see within range. A dart deals 1d4 plus 1 force damage to its target. The darts all strike simultaneously, and you can direct them to hit one creature or several. At higher levels, you can use second level spell slot, all of that. So just based on that wording, I would feel not adverse to allowing my monk to use Deflect Missile. I might have some sort of extra roll involved with that, maybe rolling with disadvantage or something along the lines of that, for the sort of nature of the magic being a little bit more unruly than just an arrow from a longbow or something. But in that specific description that I read, I don't feel like it necessarily shoots down the idea of a monk using Deflect Missile.
So
Would you actually push that so that they're contested against the wizard's intelligence? I mean, that seems like exactly what you're kind of looking for, because those missiles are force damage and they're being directed. If you're going to reach out your hand to force damage, you're going to hurt your hand. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
Okay.
So deflect missiles, the verbiage says that you can use your reaction to catch or deflect a missile when hit by a ranged weapon attack. So it's a spell attack, not a weapon attack. But I
Oh,
do
the
like the
range.
idea of like, I'll allow you to try it, but you're going to have to roll a really high. You'd have to roll for it. Like, you don't just get a freebie.
Yeah.
You can try. You can try.
And this is
Yeah,
an
'cause-
example of, the rules as written kind of thing, and then the rule of cool of like, you know what? Why don't you try it?
Right.
All right.
I feel like that's the flow chart. The flow chart is, what are the rules? Okay, the rules say this doesn't strictly work, but it is cool. So now we're going to move into the you can certainly try section, and let's see what happens.
All right. Now this one, I'm extremely excited to hear ideas. So I want everyone to let this sink in for a second. The
Oh, here, let me put
scenario was
my thinking cap.
the scenario was a dungeon that had some magical traps and deterrents, and the DM wanted to create a puzzle that made the idea was the player needed to look inside of themselves to find their character flaw. It was an attempt in getting this character to progress, with their character arc. So the idea was, of course, look inside yourself. They come across this empty room that had nothing in it except a big standing mirror. It was a full-length standing mirror, very ornate, and around the top was etched the phrase, "To escape, look inside." That was supposed to make the player reflect inward. The player instead asked if they could use Misty Step to Misty Step into the mirror. This is
Yes.
where the story is going to end. I don't know what the DM decided. He just brought this up as this is what happened, and I had to come up with something in that moment. What would you guys decide?
I already have an idea, but I've been jumping on
cool
things
idea.
first, so I'll let other people take the wheel for now. But I do have
How
my
about
immediate.
Jay or Randy? You guys have any ideas right now?
I do, in fact, have an immediate idea. The thing that I would do is I would immediately turn it to a, basically like a dream sequence. You would go inside the mirror, it would get, everything around you would suddenly fade away. And the fog would rise up around you as you coalesce into the space, and at that point it goes into the things that he's trying to get that character to see and reflect on, being shown in like snippets of maybe not necessarily power, but like almost like tiny videos, and just like walking through in a VR experience maybe would probably be a better phrasing of, hey, this is the thing that happened. How do you think you're handling it?
That is a really cool idea. I had not thought of that. Using what the player did to go, yes, and bring the original intention back in. Oh.
I knew what I wanted you to do. You're going to get there one way or the other.
Right.
Randy, do you have anything you'd like to say about this scenario?
So for me, this kind of relies on how well I know the player and the character and their intentions. But
Okay.
I would absolutely allow it, and then I'd probably lean into the trope that when you're in that mirror dimension, the things that you're interacting with are exactly the opposite of what you are. And if you show them little snippets, little scenarios of them acting in exactly the opposite way of how they would normally act, and see how they actually react to that. Is it favorable? Is it unfavorable? And then you can kind of tie in psychic damage or something along those lines on places where they're not really leaning into their character the way that they had originally written it out. Or you can give little boons, little temporary rewards for every time that they do hit on something that aligns with what their character is really about.
Wow. Jeez. My gosh, I'm loving this because you guys are coming up with such cool scenarios. I've had time to think about this, and I haven't thought about that at all. You guys came up with that on the spot. That's so impressive. All right, Darren, I'm curious to hear what you came up with.
I think the only sort of difference between what I've already heard and what my first instinct was because the wording of Misty Step, I believe, says an unoccupied space within 30 feet, that I would totally let them do the Misty Step, but instead of it being sort of its own dimension or like sort of an ethereal dreamscape, I would probably set it as like an actual mirror, like step, as though they're stepping through a threshold of a door, so that they are like in the room that they left, but everything is flipped, and have them sort of play out these things in that world. And one thing that I didn't solidify yet, but came up while I was thinking about this, was how, like, when you're looking in a mirror, you might see things that another person can't, or another person sees things from their angle that you might not necessarily see from where you're standing. So playing with something like that, of like, maybe like there's only, like, you see one of your party members, but then they turn and it's only like half of their body because you could only see half of them from where you were standing in the mirror. Something like that, where like sort of playing with the perspective that mirrors have. It's actually really interesting, like the mirror conversation, because I had a like one shot planned, and I have a book that I just went through and found like every mirror trap and puzzle that I could find, because I wanted there to be sort of like Hall of Mirror vibes. So mirrors are fun in your games.
Terrifying.
Put them in your games, because players will overthink them and do things like this, and it's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know until maybe a year ago that mirrors were considered portals to other realms, and now I'm terrified of, mirrors. So, not necessarily terrified, but they have a history. One thing that I would like to add before we go to Nimue and Cap on this, if they have anything they want to say, if we did Darren's idea of like they go into the room and everything's just opposite, what happens to the reflection? Because in my mind went, okay, you do it, but you turn around and you see a copy of yourself, and then that creates new fuckery. So, Cap, Nimue, you have any thoughts on this?
I'm very curious if Cap and I have had the same thoughts on this.
I'm gonna let you go first then.
We share a lot of same brain energy, so I'm just very, very curious on this one. So kind of similar to Darren's thing, they Misty Step, they go in, they see the room, but it's opposite. They turn around and they see themselves. And this is where, like, the DM, if the DM knows what their goals were, what their flaw is, they stand there while their reflection is like their inner demon or their inner voice that is telling them, like, wow, you've really changed, or whatever. And like that flaw comes out to mock them or make them feel bad or whatnot. And it's that other version of themselves, their inner voice or that inner flaw, that is interacting with them. So it's just them mirror to mirror kind of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. All right, Cap, was that what you were thinking?
I definitely had that idea, and so the idea is you Misty Step in, and so there is specifically in D&D the mirror of life stealing. It's where you look in the mirror, and if you fail your charisma save, you get sucked into an extra dimensional prison. And the prison has 12 extra dimensional cells. And I actually used that in the kids' third game. Somebody they were hired to find was stuck in one. And so the idea that I immediately had was you get sucked into it's a mirror of life stealing, and you are now in a 12-room dungeon in an extra dimensional space, and you are your own villain. I have your character sheet because you're I have your character sheet as a player. I am now going to run you as a bad guy against you. And the point of you discovering your flaws is I'm going to run a version of you that is your flawed self. And you don't defeat this villain by knocking him down to 0 hit points. You defeat this villain by realizing the flaws. And to make it so that then there's two other parts. One, I don't want one player doing a 12-room dungeon. So you're in a mirrored universe. There are mirrored copies of your party there to help you. So the other players are playing their party. But at the same time that this happens, you Misty stepped into the mirror. Your evil reflection Misty stepped out to take your place. So your evil self is also out in the real world until you can get out. And the mirror is the door to get back out again. But you got to go through those 12 cells to find that mirror to get back out.
It would be funny if all of the party members who are in the mirror, helping the original character fight off their flawed self, if they had to act in a way that was amplifying all of their worst traits at the same time. Maybe they're not flawed, but just the worst part of them comes out, like a little bit more selfish, a little bit more depressed, edgy, whatever it is.
Yeah. And you could
All
even
right.
have, if you really want to tie all the players into it, in other cells then are the negative reflections of the other players too.
Okay. We got some chat questions that I would love to go to. So last thoughts on the mirror dimension, anything like that? All right. Let's see. We are going to start with Lady Cass's question because she has been with us for a very long time. We also have another one coming up soon from Veruca. But Lady Cass asks, what monster, plot point, or character from a game, movie, TV, book, whatever, did you have to bring into your campaign and bring to life? And how well did it go? The question is, how well did it translate? And that might be a little different. But have you ever taken inspiration from another source and did it go well or not? I'm trying to think too. Because I know we all get inspiration from everywhere.
I had one that wasn't necessarily mine, but was one of my players.
Okay.
So my partner, his original character for our campaign was a bard, and his bard is the Korakuri, I think is the race. The one weird race that they're basically robots, but all of their internal stuff is in a briefcase that they carry with them. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the race correctly. But he basically made that bard to be David Bowie. His name was Ezekiel Stardust. He ended up getting an Equestrodon that he named Major Tom. He has had... We ended up having a portion where they fought against the Goblin King, and he went, "Excuse me, you stole my look, I want my clothes back," for the Jareth references, because they finally figured out that they were fighting against that Goblin King. And so, yeah, his bard is basically David Bowie as a robot bard, and it's gone pretty hilariously, and some people picked it up very quickly, others didn't, and it's great.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's also the most frustrating character for me to deal with, because that's the time where he that's the character where he brings out him deciding that he's going to mess with me and sass me the most. And I'm like, I get this enough from you just living here. Do I have to get this right now?
This is your escape from reality.
I don't think I ever brought something, what do I want to say? I don't think I ever brought something noticeably into a campaign like that. Inspiration, definitely. But I think the only time that I ever gave something where it was obviously from something else, I did a Halloween one-shot where I told all the players to make a character based on an existing character. and we had Sailor Saturn, I think. No, Sailor Mars. We had Sailor Mars from Sailor Moon. We had Deadpool, and we had the 3 witches from Hocus Pocus. And I made it as corny as possible. The main villain was a tiefling that was tiefling named Nutmeg, who brought them in for a game show, and you magically transported them in. No explanation. It's one shot. Who cares? They did a game show where I asked them questions about D&D, and if they got it wrong, they lost hit points. Immediately went into round 2, which was my attempt to bring Mario Kart into D&D, using dice and everything like that, and like dice rolls for what magic power up you got, and dice rolls for how fast you went, and dice rolls for if you hit a banana, how quickly do you come out of it, come out of the spin. I think I did okay. If I had more time to plan, it would have been better. But Mario Kart does not translate well into D&D.
You mean cars?
and then
You mean
the-
real life dune buggies and cars don't really translate to the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons too well?
Thought it was fun. It was fun. It was weird. And then the last round, they had to fight Mecha Godzilla. So in Tokyo, I have to say.
Love that.
So it was just a weird one shot. But yeah, anything that didn't translate well, Mario Kart probably was a little more difficult to bring in. Anybody else?
I think the closest I've gotten to something like this is I did I think it was like meant to be a one shot, ended up being a 2-shot like they all do. And it took place in an art museum. And so I drew a bunch of inspiration from a couple different places like Epic Mickey and Bendy and the Ink Machine, that kind of vibe of having things like come out of the paintings and whatnot, and sort of drew on what I liked from Epic Mickey and Bendy and the Ink Machine, and that sort of vibe of things be even like a little bit of Splatoon, like the vibe of having like ink be the method of travel, and the sort of how things look and interact with the real world if they sort of manifest from a drawing or a painting or things like that. And I think it was fairly successful. I think people sort of got what I was like, sort of picking up what I was putting down, so they sort of ran with that vibe. But yeah.
I've had like 50 years of fantasy literature and media. I'm sure that I have absolutely pillaged from that. One thing that I am planning on doing, because my daughters, for whatever reason, are very much into Five Nights at Freddy's right now. I do plan on doing a one-shot for them based completely off of that lore. So right now I'm asking them a bunch of questions and kind of tucking stuff away in the back of my mind so that I can bring something out. Plus I'm watching them play right now, so it's coming. It just hasn't made it yet.
So much good stuff there to refer to. I mean, the great thing about using something that's so popular is there is so much source material and like fan-made stuff that you can, if you wanted to branch out from like the actual core of things, you can get like just so much stuff to pull from. And I'm sure there's people that have like stat blocks for Freddy and the other animatronics and things like that
absolutely.
already.
Oh, they're out there.
Oh yeah.
They're out there. They exist.
Yeah, I bet.
Our DM Dustin used Cannibal Shia LaBeouf and the stat box out there. So
That's
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and
madness.
I may or may not have made a stat block for the Dirt Man. So, and he has lore. We wrote lore and everything for it, so I guess that will be used at some point.
I will say
I
I
have a-
played in a game once. Oh, Who was talking? Jay? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I have a little mini campaign that I want to do for my players, but I'm not entirely certain that I trust the current players. I may have to do like my other half. I have an entire folder of Disney stat blocks, and I want to do like a little mini Disney campaign. And when I say that I have a folder, I mean it's several hundred like stat block long of
Is
just
Chernobog in there?
villain. Yes, Turnbox absolutely in there. So, and one of the other fun things that I have in there is somebody homebrewed the princess class. So it is a player character class that you can play, that there's different types of princesses, whether you were, exiled as a princess, or you were, sent off to be in the clergy, or you're trying to reclaim your lands, or things like that. So there's very many different ways that you can just be a princess. And you can bring along a retainer that helps fight for you. Like, the homebrew class for it is just, it's so hysterical. And I want to be able to just, like, hand it off to my players and be like, let's have some fun.
So what I'm hearing is we need to set up a Crypts and Cryptids Dark Crescent Studio collaboration here.
Beat me by that much. Because that is also on, ironically enough, my husband's wish list of games. My husband's not exactly a Disney person, but he loves Stitch, and he wants to play Stitch in a game so bad.
I will say,
God.
my sister always makes fun of me because I have a notes app page of just like the campaign ideas that I want to run. Like half of them aren't fleshed out at all. It's just like one or two words, be like, okay, this would be interesting. And it like starts out pretty basic, like, okay, like New England lighthouse vibes, summer camp, Spelljammer type stuff. Then we take a hard left into Ben 10 and Monsters Inc. are the two that I have written down of universes that I would like to play a game in. I just think there's so much interesting lore. That Ben 10 is like a little bit of a backseat because I don't know too much about it, but I'm a huge Monsters Inc. fan, and like figuring out mechanics with the doors and just the universe that they set up, just so good. They've basically already set up like a Feywild, but it's the human world. So it's like the parallels. Mwah. So maybe one day I'll get to do that, and that'll be my new answer to this question.
All right, there you go.
I was gonna end by just saying I played in a game once where my friend DM'd, and he essentially sucked all the players into another universe that ended up being he called it the collection, and the universe was kind of like the void from the Loki and the TVA. Before that was even a thing. This was like 5 years ago that we played. It was just like the trash heap of every universe. Things that, didn't belong, or, people didn't want there, would be sent here. And we would run into so many weird things. I remember one was finding my husband's gonna kill me if I get this wrong. The swordfish from Cowboy Bebop, a spaceship basically. And then we were attacked by some bandits, and the lead bandit was described as tossing up what looked to us like a ball that was red and white. And when the combat started, he threw it down and said, "Go Charizard." We're like, "Oh shit, this isn't good."
Nice.
So that actually played very well. So there was a lot that could have been brought in for this, short campaign idea or one-shot idea. Just bring in all the random stuff that you already like and let people fight them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Does anyone have any other examples that they would like to say? I'm going to look at the other questions, but anyone have anything else?
Fred Saberhagen's The Book of Swords. that's one that I took all the swords out of those books and put them into a campaign.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Book of Swords.
Mhm.
Ooh.
I made John Constantine as a character. His name is Joel Callahan in D&D, but he is a multi-subclassed warlock because he is first and foremost a con man. And so he's not technically a warlock with a patron. He just does favors for powerful creatures who then reward him with various abilities. And so he has, a power given to him by an archfey as a reward for a favor, and he's got a power given to him by a fiend. So he's not beholden to any of them, but he's got a Rolodex of beings that he could call on. And he talked his way out of a fight with Baba Yaga.
Not an easy feat.
All right.
Hilariously enough, our Commandant Kobold that turned himself into a stuffed teddy bear did similar because he thought that the talking teddy bear kobold was just too amusing.
Mhm.
That's how he got out of, not pissing off a dragon, too. His cuteness kind of derails our campaign quite a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, it can. All right. Next question from Veruca Volatile. And I'm very curious to hear Nimwe's answer to this. What is the best thing your party has done that you didn't expect them to do? I have talked about the pussy heist. Okay. I have talked about it. For those who may not have caught it, my players were supposed to investigate a thieves guild, realized they all had access to find familiar. They all summoned cats and threw the cats in to go investigate. And I had to, on the spot, rework an entire manner of traps and enemies for cats. They named it Pussy Heist. I would never let
That seems appropriate.
that.
It's catastrophic.
What is the best thing that your party has done that you didn't expect?
Best thing? Please.
I'm going to let somebody else answer first because my wizard is about to show up, so I can ask him what he thinks the best thing that one of them has done. Because they've pulled some shenanigans.
You know what? The best thing my party ever did, this is the teenagers, is they created their own BBEG and they don't know it yet. Early on,
Ooh.
I had put an NPC in there, so I had a situation that I put I had a requirement for that they didn't have. So I had an NPC in place that had the one thing that I thought they were going to need, which was the knock spell. And it turned out they destroyed the thing that the knock spell would have been used for. So the NPC wasn't necessary, but they were in a situation where the NPC kind of had to physically stick with them for a little while. And so I decided I had a way I was going to write this NPC out. And the players decided they were going to try to trick and kill her. And she, when she got stabbed, she turned invisible, fled, and disappeared into the Underdark. And because of their shenanigans, all of the, I had some vague ideas about things going on in the world and potential villains. I realized they just created their own villain through their own actions. And when that comes to fruition, it's going to be so much more meaningful than anything I put in place, because they're going to know that they created this problem for themselves. This is the consequence of their own actions.
Dang.
I have one if nobody else does at the moment, but I can also toss it to somebody else if they would like to go first.
Go for it. I'm deciding which one I want.
All right.
You wanna talk about?
Took me a while to think of this, but it's one of the more recent ones. It's in the campaign. One of the campaigns I'm currently running, the steampunk one, and in the second or third session. The session basically started out with the campaign started out with a friend that every party member shared, unveiling this like new invention that she had. It then exploded, killing her and injuring all of the party who was in the VIP section of this like gathering space. So they all got put in the hospital. What I didn't expect was when they woke up in the hospital in the next session, they escaped the hospital. So they basically like left their room and went on sort of like a sneak away mission because there were like cop people outside of the room because they were one of the last people to see the person before the invention exploded, and so they used the on-off my Clockwork Soul Sorcerer used the on-off cantrip to make the coffee machine one of the cops was at go on the fritz. So he was like stuck there trying to fix that, and one of the other ones was asleep, so they snuck by and they got to the room where their like shared friend was staying before she was deemed no longer alive. And I had to like pretty much think on my feet of like, okay, because I had some NPCs that were sort of interacting around her room and whatnot, and so I basically had to think quick of like, okay, what might they see if they go in this room? What might they not see? And so basically what ended up happening was they investigated the room, and all they found was they found her medical chart and whatnot, and found mention of the security cameras going off at like just before the time of death, and there was a drawer that was rifled through, and basically it ended up linking them with another NPC that is trying to help them, because he was in the room at that moment and was using a spell scroll for invisibility, and so he had like leapt out the window moments before, and so all they found basically was the window cracked open with a little bit of hair, which they didn't know was his fur, and they were left to sort of wonder what they might have just stumbled in on. So that was like a really cool thing that I was gifted at the very beginning of a campaign that helped attach some other threads that I had. Yeah, long-winded, but...
Oh, nice. Very cool. I'm trying to think.
Did you have one, M? I thought I talked over you.
Oh, no, you're okay. I mean, I've only DM'd one game, so
Yeah, and I'm
it's
sure
hard.
you
And
did some shit.
honestly, the game went almost exactly how I had it planned in my head.
That's impossible. I don't think that's ever possible in a D&D game.
It honestly did, though, and I think part of it is because, like I said earlier, Cap and I had this like same brain energy, so like.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just picked up on the vibes of like where it was gonna go, and I didn't have to like really hold his hand like through it to be like dark way. Like it naturally progressed the way that I had it pictured in my mind. The funniest thing though that I was not expecting was I had set it up that him, the NPC, we're gonna have a combat, and then we're gonna camp for the night, and then have the actual like big combat the next day. And so I had a road encounter that I had set up with a merchant that had been carrying big barrels of wine, and his cart, the axle on his cart broke, and one of the wine barrels rolled out and broke open, and inside was a black pudding ooze.
Ooh.
And so they came upon a group of guards that were fighting this ooze, and he ended up shaming my ooze to death.
Yeah, I did.
I mean,
So it was a vicious tree, or what was it that you cast on it?
I think it was Mind Sliver. It was Mind Sliver.
He cast Mind Sliver, and he did the I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And it like died. So it's like, you shamed my ooze to death.
I did.
It was great. So I'd say that was, yeah, that was pretty good.
My Clockwork Soul Sorcerer used Mind Sliver to one-shot one of the first enemies I threw at them, one of their first combats, like just dead instantly. I went, oh, wildly misunderestimated that.
Oh,
Yeah.
same.
So
He wiped the floor with all of my bad guys, but it was great. It was still great.
I think with M specifically is one this empathetic connection too is like I don't want her to feel stressed while she's DMing, and so my DM brain sort of kicks on in the background, and it's like, what do I think she's trying to do as a DM, and how can I facilitate that, and not derail it, and make this a difficult experience for her, versus the teenagers who are going to do like completely wild shit and fuck everything up.
Oh yeah.
a noble sacrifice.
I
Okay.
also the guard, so one of the guards was being eaten by the black pudding as I ran up and so I'm like trying to pull him out of this to save him, and she's describing it. She's like, oh no, when you go to pull him, it's like when if somebody falls into a subway and they've gotten and like when they
Just
he's
pulls them
done.
apart. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, so I cast Shocking Grasp on him because I don't want this man to suffer.
Fair.
I put
So
the
he
man out of
shocking
his-
grasped the man to death, and I was like, that's fair. That's fair.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
How about Randy?
Craziest thing. Oh God. So let's see here. There was the polymorph rock dropped into the bag of devouring. There was the person who just full on jumped into the. Okay, my players are more intelligent than I am, and I'll just throw that out there. All the time, and they will always take a direction that I never would have thought of in a million years. And they're not afraid to split the party. So I have these instances over and over and over again where I have to, on the fly, figure out how to get people back together so that we can start running as a cohesive unit again. That happens like on a every other week basis. So I've been doing it too long. My mind is jumbled with all the things that these people have done. I had somebody convince a dragon to go attack a city that they didn't like and destroyed the entire thing. I mean, it's just, little things. And then had to live with the guilt for that, which
Little things.
was, little things.
Love that.
That's how
All
we got the
right, let me
Hobbit.
think. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember if I've talked about how my players killed a god without taking any damage. I feel like I
Come again?
have. Yeah, it's worth re-mentioning. So my current campaign has the premise of there are a lot of forgotten gods that are trying to get purchased again because they don't want to be forgotten. They want to get followers so that they can get stronger and therefore take their place back on the pantheon. One of my players wanted in his background to have a god of blades, one that would be like a patron god of dueling and fighting and things like that. So the way I created this was I decided that this god of blades isn't strong enough to be its own host yet, so it's going to find really strong fighters and possess them. And I made one of the NPCs that was close to the party, of course, the one that was possessed. Well, the possession was a dice roll, and it just so happened that one time the host was able to take control, and he goes stumbling back to the party and begs for help. Well, the party intelligently decides to tie him up. They literally hog tie him, hands behind his back, hands to his ankles, kind of thing. Like if if the god comes out, you're still hogtied. Well, they know a little bit about this god. They've learned that it really respects duels and the rules that go along with it and contracts, basically. So if like, for example, if a duel happens and someone else interferes, the duel's canceled. The God of Blades does not see that as valid. That kind of thing. So what they did was they made a deal with this god when it repossessed the host. Said, "You're going to fight all of us. If you defeat all of us, you can have our souls. If we defeat you, you go away." And it was, like, you're going to go back to the other realm. The god agreed. They get ready to start this fight, and they start rolling initiative without me asking. And I'm like, is anyone going to untie the god first? And they leaned in and went, that wasn't part of the deal. So I spent this god's entire turns and legendary actions trying to break free. And I can't roll above a 4. And they're just wailing on him. 500 hit points down to nothing in like 2 turns. And I can't do shit. And it was a wonderful, glorious moment of, I am so proud of you and so pissed off at the same time.
That's amazing.
That's when the DM remembers crying is in fact a free action.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's
And
just
then another time was a little more simple. In a very high magic fantasy campaign that I ran, I gave a player a full necklace of fireballs with all 9 beads on it when they were like level 3, because I was going to throw some really tough crap at them. And he held on to that until the BBEG fight. And then just went 72 D6 of fire damage. You motherfucker.
Man.
I was proud and pissed.
What's
That being said,
I gave one of the characters. I gave one of the characters a ring of. Well, they were going into a dragon fight at level 4, and I was like, I want to give them a little bit of backup, so I gave one of them a ring of spell storing that has a 5th level. I think it's Find Familiar. No, I'm sorry, it's Summon Fey. And anticipating they were going to need to use it in this dragon fight, and they didn't. And they've been walking around with it. And I realized, like, this is like the nuclear option. And so in the last session, and Nimue was there for this, they were walking through a city, and it was like this, almost like a skill challenge. There was a bunch of perception rolls and stealth rolls and stuff. And I had them at one point roll a perception roll when I rolled a stealth roll, a sleight of hand roll for an urchin, who wound up beating them and stealing the ring off their hand, which they realized by the end of the session. So now there's a couple of different directions they're going to go, which were not anticipated. One of them is this was a guild ring, because the character is a member of an assassin's guild, and this is a guild ring, and this character is like, oh shit. So that'll be fun.
Whoopsie.
I would like to let everyone know that the average roll for 72 D6 is 252. So, God bless your soul. That is a tough thing to have to go, okay, here we go.
Yep. That painful in multiple ways.
Yeah. My question is, how many D6 did you actually roll to get to the 72? Like, did you have like 10 that you rolled 7 times?
I went to Google. I think I just went to Google and I was like, roll 72.
Yep. Smart. Yeah, Google just rolled me 230 or 252 with my roll. So
it rolled me 250. It rolled me 256.
Yep, that's yeah.
Yeah, as bringing back painful memories there. Jay, do you have a story?
So, one of the really hilarious stories that comes to mind is actually from the Bunkers and Badasses campaign. So I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the Bunkers and Badasses system, But that particular system is amusing because just like in, playing any of the Borderlands games, you die a lot. And dying's okay, because you just respawn at the nearest brew you cauldron with 10% less of your gold. The TTRPG version, you have to roll on the trauma table.
Oh,
And there are temporary traumas that reset after a long rest, and there are permanent traumas for if you really get smashed to, utter pieces. Psychos in that game are, as they are in the video game, glass cannons. Our poor Psycho died repeatedly. And some of the traumas that he rolled up that stacked was when he climbed out of the Brew U cauldron, he was no longer a regular Psycho. He was a 4-year-old. So he still had all of his stats, all of everything, his mind, and basically everything was the same, but he was now suddenly a toddler. This got combined with a second death very shortly afterwards, where the trauma that he rolled up, he mixes up guns and food and cannot tell the difference between the two. So we have a 4-year-old Psycho walking around trying to eat his chainsaw.
It sounds like a Tuesday night to me.
Sounds like Southern Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Another one of the interesting, crazy things was bringing back, the kobold that I mentioned earlier. And the backstory to this kobold was he was originally just a kobold. He was communist kobold, managed to find his way into the Feywild, where he joined up with the party, who then went back to Taldore eventually. But during the Christmas one-shot that I always send my players to, he had requested a race change, and I proposed it to the rest of the group, and everybody was fine with it. He's now a Geppetto, which is a homebrew race of toy. So he went with the rabbity option. So he looked at Santa and was like, I kind of liked being a toy when you turned me into one. Can I be that way forever? And so, we let him do that. My partner immediately tells me, mute yourself. Okay. He can only do the race switch if anytime he gets hit, it sounds like a dog squeaker toy going off. And I went, done. Unclick. Okay, so you are now turned into a toy, and the entire everybody else is like, what just happened? And I'm like, nothing. Don't worry about it. Next time he got hit, I'd gone to Dollar Tree, gotten a dog toy that had a squeaker and ripped the squeaker out and let it off when he got hit. But the crazy thing that he did is because he's now a tiny little stuffed teddy bear, he can mage hand himself around. This turn is also a rune knight. They are up against the boss in this Fey town. War crime is not it's not a war crime the first time. This town many times over, in process of liberating it, and he's 45 feet up in the air, right above the leader. Enlarges himself and does a 45-foot Rikishi drop on top of my boss and killed him with the halved fall damage.
That's funny. I'm sorry.
That's amazing. Yep.
That's
It's
hilarious.
one of the things that, it was great. I loved them. I still give them a hard time for.
Oh yeah.
Fully earned.
That's fair.
Fully earned.
It's those things as a DM where it's like I said, I'm so proud and I'm so pissed at the same time.
Mhm.
I've mentioned it before, but when I I leave little breadcrumbs of hints about the lore of everything leading up to this one particular mountain in my campaign. And then my player just goes, cast legend lore on the mountain. What? That just tells you everything that I've been hinting at, which is both wonderful and also this is going to be like 2 to 3 pages typed out of all the lore that you're going to learn. Okay, hang on, I gotta go.
I think I had never considered legend lore to be something that would be emotionally impactful ever until I watched Fantasy High Junior Year. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but the way that Brendan Lee Mulligan uses it in that campaign is maybe the greatest thing ever. Without doing any spoilers, he shows a video of him talking from the first campaign they did. He just sort of smiles and plays a recording of something he said 5 years ago to answer a question that was asked, essentially, with the most menacing smile on his face. And I went, oh,
That's
so
brilliant.
that's the potential.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Truly. It definitely
I've
worth your time to watch that campaign alone, if not the entirety of Dimension 20. I've learned so much.
Yeah, just Brendan Lee Mulligan in general. He's the one I aspire to. Yeah.
All right. So, mods, if we could get the link back in for the questions, that would be amazing. Anyone who has any other questions you would like us to answer, we still have about half an hour, give or take, that we'll do here. But I do have another scenario from my friend that I have an easy one at first, and then I have maybe a little more interesting. This is kind of like the if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it proverb. If a bard sings a song of rest in a silenced area, does it still heal their allies? Song of Rest is an ability, not a magic spell. And there's nothing in the ability that says that they have to be able to hear it.
Let's see.
At least not in the version that I read. So maybe you guys can find something else. But
The one
The Bard
I'm reading
sings Song
says
of
if
Rest.
you or any friendly creature who can hear your performance.
all right. The one that I
but
read just said friendly creatures nearby.
Let me look at the official. Let me look at D&D Beyond.
But I'm not a singing bard. I do interpretive dance.
It's true.
It's
Not all bards are singing, right?
It's
I know a
D&D
bard that
Beyond
was in
also
mine.
says anyone that you can that can hear your performance.
Well,
what
what
if
if
it's not an
what if you
auditory
are a
performance?
dancing barb and you suck at singing?
Yeah,
I
what
would
if you do
say-
shadow puppets?
Okay, so I think this ruling goes back to what we said on one of our first. Is like if you're gonna play it by the rules, I would say silence would probably prevent
Sure.
the healing. However, I would love to see a bard be like, well, I'm going to make my song of rest an interpretive dance or something like that. Because that's a fun way to be like, or because I also know that if I had like a villain or something that was like, oh, they're like, you both have a moment of downtime and he goes to do a song of rest to heal allies. Like if they cast silence on that, I would have to let that work. That's so cool. Like that's such a smart idea. So, and by the books, it works. So it sort of just depends on what I think, like most rulings that we make, what works for the moment. What do you think is the most fun and also somewhat supported and doesn't entirely break your game?
All right. I feel like that's fair. All right. Now, this also goes to players doing things that you don't expect.
So players being players.
Yeah. So one of this DM's parties befriended a gelatinous cube.
As one does.
I don't know how, but they did. There's a question of the gelatinous cube has no ears. So can the bard inspire it still if the bard is, singing or anything like that? But another question is they wanted to cast polymorph on their gelatinous cube ally, but they wanted it to retain its gelatinous abilities. Would you allow that? Let them polymorph it into a direwolf, but now it's a gelatinous cube direwolf.
For flavor,
I-
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would almost say yes if it was keeping its gelatinous cube look, and like if it was pretty much just a gelatinous cube shaped into a direwolf, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
I would keep
I
it.
would say, yeah, I
if
would
you're-
say, like, if you
you're
want to
keeping it-
flavor this dire wolf, like, I would allow the polymorph for it to, like, have wolf stats, I think, but I think, like, you can't have both worlds. Like, it's either going to be the gelatinous cube stat or the direwolf stat. So if you want to say that the direwolf, like, it being polymorphed, it, like, is basically you sort of, like, modeling this jelly into the shape of a wolf, that's hilarious and fun to think about, like, basically one of those, like, boardwalk gummy candies, but it's a direwolf, and it's just sort of like plodding along. That's great. I love that. But, like, it's not going to gain any benefits from being jelly. It's still going to have the direwolf stats. I will say about the inspiration issue, similarly to the last thing we said, Bardic Inspiration does say within 60 feet that can hear you. So I do have to look at the gelatinous cube, like hearing, but
it has blind sight to 60 feet.
okay.
So theoretically, I would say if the bard is within 60 feet, because it's got blind sight, you could like stomp your feet to a tune. You could do the Queen song, "We Will Rock You." And because it can feel those tremors, it's like, yeah, we will rock you.
Oddly, the gelatinous cube is also immune to being deafened. So
I was gonna say it is immune to being deafened.
yeah, and
Is it
then
immune
going
to
back
being
to the
deafened because it's already deaf? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps.
Blind sight, passive perception.
I'm immune to bad vision because I was born blind, something like that.
Yeah.
So with the whole direwolf thing, would you
I guess the question is
actually
then,
reskin? Would you actually reskin the damage as acid damage? Because that seems like it would be reasonable.
Yeah, like I would say, you know what? You befriended a freaking gelatinous cube, and you're going to cast polymorph on it, which is a 4th level spell. Yeah, I'm going to give you a direwolf with, like 1d4 acid damage every bite or something. Like,
Yeah, I think I could get behind that.
That's not going to make or break our combat.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
fair enough.
basically you're downgrading a gelatinous cube. A gelatinous cube is a CR2, and you're technically downgrading it to a CR1 direwolf. So it's like,
Right.
sure.
Yeah, I could.
So
get
yeah, I
behind
just take the bite
acid
damage. Yeah, I just
So
take the bite damage and change it on over. My daughter was playing a plasmoid druid, and every time she polymorphed, she would be a gummy whatever
Perfect.
version she was doing. So yeah,
That's adorable.
You know. So it's a Gummy Bears campaign.
that's right.
Love it.
All right.
Ooh, I found a Reddit thread asking if dissonant whispers would affect a gelatinous cube. But
'Cause it has
somebody
to be
said
able to
there's
hear.
nothing in the monster manual about them being immune to psychic damage, but they can't see anything. But they can't see anything in the manual about them actually being able to hear or not. Only blind sight is mentioned. So it looks like there's not an official mention of them not being able to hear, simply that they have blind sight and are immune to being deafened. So potentially they could maybe be affected by bardic inspiration or other hearing things.
Well, if we really want to throw science on top of it, what is an ear but a method of interpreting sound waves into information? Arguably, the entire surface of the gelatinous cube is absorbing sound waves and interpreting, what they're
That's
supposed to
exactly what this one comment says. Cubes cannot be deafened, which I understand to mean their entire bodies function as eardrums, being moved ever so slightly by vibrations in the air. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love attempting to fit physics into my game.
I'm glad one of
It's
us enjoys
fun.
trying to do that.
Okay, speaking of that, let's really go off on a tangent. If a
Okay.
dragon is flying over a town at about, we'll say, 600 feet, and it relieves itself.
Oh no. Not the Dave Matthews question.
It's Dave Matthews' question. You now have Drake refuse falling 600 feet. It caps at 20d6 fall damage. But what are the implications of this? This is like a Volkswagen falling out of the air.
I guess it would depend on the Drake's recent diet.
Fair.
It could act more as a rainstorm than a hailstorm. So I suppose that's something to consider. If it were solid mass, I
Start
think
rolling
even
me
the
some
most
dexterity
solid. I'm tiptoeing around TOS here.
Same.
I think the most solid, even the most solid, has give to it. So there's, I think it wouldn't be like, obviously it would reach critical speeds there, which is not going to be good anyway. I think, I'm trying to think of what possible real world equivalent could be applied here.
Well, I mean, so if you fall from this was a thing I had looked up. If you fall from a mile, by rules as written, you only take 20d6.
Sure.
So if the dragon is cruising at 600 feet, that's where anything above 200 feet, it's going to cap at 20d6. So this is 20d6 of bludgeoning damage. So if it's hitting a structure or if it's hitting a person, like it's 20d6.
Yeah, I mean, I think the implications are, if you're ruling it, if you like the fall damage rules, you go with that, and then you deal with the flavoring of how everything else plays out. I hate that I have to use the word flavor in this context, but I mean, there might be a bakery in this town. What are the implications? I mean, this town might never recover, so...
I love the idea too that this is a magic item distribution system, because this is a live dragon that people have probably tried to kill, and it's eaten them.
Oh
so
no!
Who knows what it?
Oh no! This town willingly accepts this fate for every now
There's
and then
gold.
they get to loot through
there's
it.
gold, there's
Boy.
sword. They're like an adventuring party that disappeared like 2 years ago. Suddenly they're like, "Hey, I found Bobby's armor. Now we know what happened to him."
Oh man, new heist idea.
It's
amazing.
The scene, I'm imagining the post-credit scene from Thor where they're all out at the crater with the hammer.
Yeah. What happened? My God, what happened here?
Yeah.
Well, this is why there's so many people in town that want the dragons gone. I have between like dragons or griffins or some other flying creature that would be in whatever area they're in. It is on my table for a random encounter that, hey, you see it flying over, and roll with me a dexterity saving throw for the entire group.
Oh my gosh.
But see now,
That
I
is so
wonder
terrifying.
too if there is some sort of alchemical property to certain elements of this that the alchemist in town is like, look, This is very useful stuff, okay? And it's really difficult to come by. Usually I gotta go find it. Like, this is right here.
Saying this, and right now the only thing that's going through my head is the SAO abridged line talking about the meteorite that he needs to make that sword.
Their crops have got to be like flourishing, right? Like they must have great agriculture, if anything.
Yep. They have like
maybe there might even be a tourism aspect. I could see a really clever snake oil salesman selling this as an experience.
They have dragon wheat that they make into dragon mead, and this is a local delicacy.
If you've ever seen the movie The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, the whole plot lines with him is he loves this coffee from wherever, and it turns out the coffee's like made from crap. So you're like,
Yep.
The coffee is made from coffee beans that have gone through the digestive system of a big cat, or something like that.
Yep. Great movie, by the way. If anybody hasn't seen that movie, you should.
It's a good movie. So we get a pet dragon. We force feed it cocoa beans or coffee beans or something. And then I ain't doing it, so I'm hiring somebody to collect the excrement and turn it into coffee.
Is this where the gelatinous cube polymorphed as a wolf comes in?
I mean, I feel like consent-wise, I don't want to force feed the dragon coffee, but I feel like if you just let it taste coffee, it's gonna get the zoomies, and then like, does that function as like haste on a dragon?
Ooh. I feel like you'd need a lot of it though. Like it would need like a dragon cup of coffee, which is probably a lot of coffee.
It's like a barrel,
Yeah.
Considering the natural intelligence of the dragons, after you force that at the coffee beans, you now know why it's doing that over the town.
You're right. So it will be more like a rain. It will be more like a rain. We've got it, folks.
Yep.
Dragons just there like, I hate you guys. I'm gonna make your life so good.
I want to say two things. First of all, I want it to be known that my husband is off screen and just gave me a very weird look. And two, Teeny says, I love this. It's like everyone just unleashed their ADHD all at once.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
That's literally what DMing is. It's letting all the tabs in your brain just open and turn all the volume on at the same time.
I have my psych evaluation on Monday for ADHD, so yes, you're
Yay!
correct.
Guess what? We already know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
One of us. One of us.
Oh yeah, I've known for a while. I'm like, well, now I'm an adult. Might as well.
Right, yeah. You got the AADH. My brain ain't doing it.
Yep, you got it.
Adult ADD. Adult ADHD. ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD and D. There it is. We made it.
We've got adult onset ADHD, so AOADHD. Okay, yeah, no, too much. Nope.
And then if we wanted to add in, I suspect I also have AUDHD, so we could add the AOAUDHD and D.
And correct, yes.
Because, and dragons, always.
Someone throw in a AAA membership, okay?
Well, it could be adult onset exciting D&D, then it's AOE.
Oh.
What were we talking about again?
We're losing them, folks. We're losing them.
We were talking about polymorph and gelatinous cubes. How did we get to dragon poop and
well, so in the kids game,
you know that ADHD thing y'all were just talking about?
Right.
Really? I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. In the kids game, speaking of befriending a gelatinous cube, I wanted to pull an item you've been carrying around for 15 sessions has been a mimic the whole time. And it was actually going to reveal itself while they were camping, and they were going to get attacked by a pack of displacer beasts, and the mimic was going to reveal itself and protect them because they're an adventuring party. It's free food and protection. I I'm probably still going to do this, but the original item was going to be when they fought the dragon and defeated it in its horde, they found a revolver because one of the players talked about wanting to shift over to become a gunslinger. And so I was going to have the revolver be a mimic. But then in talking with the player was really down for the idea of becoming a gunslinger. So I was like, okay, I don't want to turn what you want to do into a joke. So that revolver one is a real revolver. And in the back of my head, I'm like, so some other item you've been carrying around for 15 sessions is going to be the mimic.
Fair.
Like that, because in 5e they kind of took the intelligence away from the mimic, and in prior editions they actually had a semi-decent intelligence, so teaming up to form up with a party makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because I don't have to fight for all my food. They're killing stuff, they're not eating it.
Right.
I don't think I came up with this idea. It was somebody had. I think I read it. It was an idea where there was a tavern, and in the basement there was like a giant mimic, and it was literally just their disposal unit.
That's good.
I do that with
Rewrite
Octave.
we rewrite that that movie with Sean Connery. I forget what that movie's called, where he escapes through the furnace, but it's just a mimic.
The Rock.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
For a second, I thought you were almost going for a Sweeney Todd reference.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. We'll go there.
There was another.
I was originally musical theater trained, so we could certainly go there.
Yeah. There was another. I think it's in GM Binder. The idea of a building mimic, because I want to have in the kids' world a tavern that the whole building is a mimic, but it's full of alcohol, so it's always mildly drunk, and so it doesn't digest. Every now and then it will accidentally digest somebody, so they'll go to bed in their room and they'll wake up covered in like goo in the alley behind the place. But other than that, it doesn't attack people.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you really want to screw with people and mimics, you just pick up the Mimic Book of Mimics.
Oh, jeez.
I actually
That
have
from Harry Potter.
No,
Monster Book of Monsters.
Not the Monster Book of Monsters. There's an actual like DM source thing that is the Mimic Book of Mimics, and it has ones that range from like tiny mimics all the way up to gargantuan. That's where I got the cave mimic that I may have chucked at them, and had one of the things that they were going to find in, and when they got it, it triggered the cave attacking them.
Now you thought Harry Potter. My brain went to the coffee table book from Seinfeld.
Fair, okay.
Nice.
Well, since we were talking about mimics and interesting ways that they've come up, let's ask us this question. It might be our last one, but we'll see. What is a creature idea or anything like that, maybe magic item that you've altered in a certain way and it either created a funny scenario or like a really cool monster stat block? One that I'm thinking of right off the bat is I had a sewer encounter, and I just learned about shambling mounds, and I thought they were kind of cool and the right creature rating for my party. So I wanted that, but in the sewer. So I made it a shambling mound of shit. And it was vines, it was all sorts of stuff, but it was mostly poop. And it had the swallow ability. So it grappled one of the players, next turn swallowed them. And then the party was able to defeat it. And when they defeat it, I describe how the player is easily able to, come back out. No, wait, I'm sorry. They didn't come back out. They got sliced out. So somebody came up and sliced the creature open so that they fell out. The player got up and, or the PC got up and the player said, I just got shut out by shit. And that's been a good quote. It's been our go-to quote for really crappy days. It's like, how was your day? I got shat out by shit. Okay.
Yep. It's
So
the Golgotha.
the Golgotha
Walk
demon
up.
from
I want to
Dogma.
mimic strawberry. Mimic strawberry.
Ooh. Is like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs too?
Hmm.
Deep
Like-
cuts
Alright,
here,
so
folks.
what
Deep
do-
cuts.
What do you guys have experience with? Seen, done, read about on Reddit?
Yeah. The one that I ran for your guys' Halloween one shot. Well, no, it wasn't the one shot. It was effectively a one shot, but the Halloween episode of Mountain of Mystery we did, which was my riff on Stephen King's Langoliers, was I took the Shadow stat block and I tweaked it into what I called a chronovore. So I had the characters fell through a rift into a moment. In the Langoliers, they fell into the past. In their one shot, they fell into a moment of a future alternate timeline. And the idea was that in the multiverse, there are futures that don't happen. And so they have to be eaten by the Langoliers, which in their case were chronovores, but they were basically just reskinned shadows with different types of damage.
Cap, I bow down to you. I finished reading that book like not even a year ago. It's like one of the most recent Stephen King books I just read. I have a whole shelf of King, and
Mhm.
probably one of my favorite like explanations of time travel and like time fuckery.
Yeah.
The moment at the end with like the time catching up to them. I'm like, oh God, he's such
Yeah.
a genius.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Yep.
I'm trying to think. I feel like the internet is so vast now that I tend to be able to find stat blocks for that like pretty much line up with the things that I need, so I don't end up doing a lot of tinkering on things because I'm usually able to find something that somebody made that I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what I want. And if anything, I'll just like change the name to fit my campaign.
Yeah. I've taken some creatures and like changed what they were made out of. Like I have creatures that were basically petrified but were still alive, like a chimera made of stone.
Mm-hmm.
One among
I made a creature for Cap to use.
Okay.
It was during the flashback game that we did for Mountain Mystery.
Okay.
It's a creature called a Ninecel, and it kind of took this idea that it takes the form of like a snake and bites someone. It's usually sent by like demons and stuff. Bites someone, they are unconscious and cannot be brought back to consciousness until this creature is dead. So when it bites them, it creates this life connection between the two, and throughout combat it can choose to siphon life from that person. And we had some pretty interesting rounds of combat because the character that I played, I chose to be bitten by this thing because I made it, and I'm like, this is not fair for me to play the creature I made. So I let my creature or my character go unconscious, and a couple rounds were spent with people trying to like bring my character back up and it not working, and pretty much they were just giving me more health to give this creature. So seeing everybody's reactions to that was pretty intense. And I had a lot of fun seeing something that I had created. It was the first thing I've ever created before I even started DMing. come to life.
And then they killed it.
And then they kill it.
Okay.
When
Go for it.
when my daughter was first getting into D&D, which I still stand by it, by the way, the best way to get a consistent group is to get married and have children and grow them to love it. But anyway, when I was first DMing my eldest daughter, she got really into it, very much so. And at the time, she was also into dinosaurs in a huge way. And she wanted me to make a raptor. She loved velociraptors. That was her favorite thing at that moment. So I said, okay, well, why don't you come up with one? And so she made an entire stat block for something that she called the Collectoraptor. Now, for the level that they were at the time, it didn't quite work, but I could reskin and make it very close to what she had created, a Quickling. So that it was just a Quickling reskinned as a Collectoraptor, which is just a raptor that liked to steal and then hoard it back into their home in the jungle. And they had entered this jungle. It was a collect the pieces to get the thing sort of MacGuffin, and it had stolen one of the pieces that they had collected, so they had to find it. And because the thing is as fast as a Quickling, which if you're not familiar, look at their speed. They are really hard to catch up to. So I mean, just them bouncing around the jungle, always being a step behind, was really kind of neat. And the amount of fun and frustration that it caused during that entire time as their dice kept betraying them.
That was
made
the
for
sound of
some
me
pretty
reading the
interesting
speed.
encounters. Oh yeah,
120. Yep, is a good one.
That's
yeah.
crazy. All I have to say about that idea is clever girl.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Thank you.
But yeah, I
I-
took 90% of her hybrid and reskinned it with the Quickling, and that was really fun.
I might have to put one of these Quicklings in something now.
I actually
I'm
had
very
the
intrigued.
teenagers
Sounds
fight.
terrifying.
The teenagers were attacked by a group of 3 of them, led by a Darkling Elder, and it was so great describing these Quicklings essentially running into this clearing, because they have 120 feet, but they're fighting in a smaller space. So they were just lapping these, like running around them, taking their dagger attacks. Like it was pretty amazing.
I could see somebody like describing if they're fast enough, describing this in like what you just described in the same way that you would describe Cloud of Daggers, but like don't mention that there's any humanoids or anything. Just like you enter this area and begin getting stabbed by a bunch of daggers, and then like there be a moment of some reveal of like, oh no, there's a bunch of little humanoids running very quickly around you, stabbing you.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
Because 120 feet in 6 seconds is very impressive.
I can't. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's
Miles per
mildly
hour.
more than terrifying.
Speaking of that, and this is so I am going to reveal the rabbit hole that we're gonna. So we have a podcast we're eventually going to get off the ground, and one of the rabbit holes that I've gone down, specifically with the Olympics going on right now, is realizing that D&D numbers aren't actually that completely insane. Like, I just watched a man climb a 50-foot wall in 4.7 seconds. That's insane. I saw a woman do it in 4.06 seconds. That's one round of combat, and she climbed 5 stories. And then, like, looking at, the 10 meter, the 100 meter, and the 200 meter, and the 400 meter, and what the ground speed is. So that's actually the rabbit hole I went down in. That will be on our on our podcast when we talk about that.
I was just thinking, like, especially since the Olympics are going on right now, I'm sure we could pull up a bunch of stats and see, like, what level would Usain Bolt be if he were a D&D player?
So Usain Bolt specifically, I looked at his numbers. His world record is 9.5800 meter. He ran the first 60 meters in 6.2 seconds. And 60 meters is about 180 feet ish.
I was gonna say that's like double.
Means which means by the numbers, with no magic, he is effectively a Tabaxi rogue with
Oh my
feline agility.
god.
Yep, because he did 90, 90, and 9, or 60, 60, and 60 is 180 feet in one round.
His daughter's name is Olympia Lightning Bolt, which I think is very fun and unrelated.
That's
But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, if anyone's been wondering why my face looks so horrified through this, is one of the things I was thinking about in this is what's the most creative use of a mimic you've ever used or seen? And without saying that out loud, our mod Knight has been posting in our Discord chat these horrific mimics from someone called Cryptid Creative, Cryptid with a K.
Oh dear.
That Furby mimic is going to give me nightmares.
I think it needs to go in the game now.
I used to think that the worst mimic out there was a high heel shoe where the tongue would like lick up the arch of the foot. That no, thank you. But everyone
There's always
Google
the health potion mimic.
Cryptid Creative, Furby mimic, and share my pain. Night, I'm blaming you when I have night terrors tonight. Okay, I'm just okay. That being said, everybody. Yep, all of our fears are real. Tiny said, yeah. All the millennials out there are going. All right.
Look, there's a reason that those things are banned from military skip. That's all I'm saying. So there's a reason that those things are banned from military skip. And I wish I was kidding.
Let's see. There it goes. Knight posted the link in the chat, guys. Just be careful, because I really wish I had never seen that Furby mimic. Exactly, right?
I'm going to do myself a favor and not look at it.
I'm going to rewatch this and find the moment where my eyes caught that, because my face was literally.
Yep.
Terrifying. All right. Everybody, we are coming up on the end of the show, so I would like to go around one more time and let everybody know who you are, if you would like to plug anything, or if you have any final words for our DMs or potential DMs out there. This was a really fun show. It was a little different than what we normally do. We did answer some questions, but we also just had some fun hypotheticals, and I think that was a fun thing to do. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way back up. So this time we're going to start with Nimue. Tell us about you. Nimue?
Didn't realize I'm muted. I'm a baby DM, so I was kind of quiet towards the end of things just because I don't have more experience than this one game that I did. But I am planning on DMing more. This was kind of a test run to see if it was something I'd like. So I'm going to probably do some more one-shots for Cap to just get comfortable with it. And I told him today that I will DM a public game for him for his birthday in October. So keep an eye out for that on this channel. Because yeah, I know he's gonna hold me to it. But yeah, you can find me here on the channel. You can find me on TikTok at Nimue of Avalon. It's really the only socials that I have other than doing crypts and cryptid stuff. So yeah.
All right. Screen cap.
I'm not actually muted. So yes, I am Screen Cap on TikTok. You'll find me in the driver's seat of a mid-sized sedan in a random parking lot somewhere. I am also on the Crypt and Cryptid stuff. We're sort of realigning, licking our wounds, and recovering from several levels of exhaustion. So we'll be sorting out what we're doing with that. I'm half the hosts of a podcast called Chaos and Counterspells. There is no schedule, but it is a thing that will be happening, and that will get announced when that comes down the pike.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Next up is I almost said Derek. That is not correct. Darren.
Sweet. Yeah, I am Darren Kinsler. You can find me at Darren Kinsler on TikTok and Instagram. Most of my D&D and TTRPG content is on TikTok, though. Something I didn't plug before is I'm starting an actual play podcast with some of my friends who are also professional creatives, whether it's professional actors, writers, etc., to play not only D&D but hopefully a wide variety of other TTRPG systems. We are at Untold Skies _ on Instagram, so feel free to give us a follow there. We have some exciting things coming along, and hopefully, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this yet because it's not super confirmed, but hell, why not? Hopefully going to be doing some sort of partnership with the folks who have created Sync, the new RPG pirate setting and tattoos, magical items, and whatnot. I've been talking back and forth with those creators for a little bit, and so hopefully we'll be able to be some of the first to showcase some of their mechanics for hopefully a wide audience. So check us out there. Hopefully we'll be playing all of your favorite game systems and having some of your favorite people on there. Yeah, you might see some familiar faces.
It's really cool. Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
All right. Jay, Dark Crescent Studios, and also somebody who's probably going to get my money in October when I see them and have to buy their dice.
I'm actually not sure about that because apparently they didn't get my application despite me sending it twice because Yahoo sucks. So.
Aw, shoot. I'm sorry, hun.
Yeah, it happens. I didn't even. Later. But I'm Dark Crescent Studio. You can find me all over the place. My link tree will take you to all of the things like my Facebook, Instagram, my shop, my socials, all the fun things, all under Dark Crescent Studio. And this will also be the final weekend for the Great Lakes Medieval Fair if anybody's in like Northeast Ohio area and wants to come see me, because I have a ton of stuff up there. And also like
awesome.
fun stuff that I'm working on now, because I never stop.
All right. And Randy, the most experienced DM in the room, tell us about you.
I'm Randy, Rollo74 on TikTok. You might have seen like my BBEG bulletins, where I just kind of give you some writing prompts, ideas. But I mean, that's kind of where I exist there. Otherwise, I'm just out in the wild. Have family, have friends that I play D&D with. That's my major thing outside of the massive amount of work that I do otherwise. So that's me.
That's awesome. All right. So again, to anyone out there who might be thinking about being a dungeon master, you should try it. You may not love it. That's okay. You may find that you found your new thing. I honestly recommend that you try it at least once. And Nimue can attest that it is worth it to try it and just do it. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about knowing the rules. Just try it and love the stories that you're going to get from it.
And there's no shame if it isn't for you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Not everyone's a DM. Not everyone's a player. But yes. Don't forget to follow us on Crypt and Cryptids here on Twitch. Don't forget to subscribe or follow us on TikTok. And just want to say one more time, happy 2-year anniversary to Crypt and Cryptids in general. Basically, the DM Dustin reached out to me one time on a live stream and asked if I wanted to play Curse of Strahd, and then I was introduced to two weirdos here, and we played through Strahd and started another campaign, and brought my husband in on that one. And yeah, I mean, it's only been 2 years, but I don't know. I'll be the one to say it. I can't imagine my life without you guys now. So
Absolutely. Likewise.
100%. Yeah.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
So everybody out there, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. To the DMs who joined me today, I loved having you on, and hopefully we can get you on again another time. Until next time, may all your rolls be crits. Everyone stay safe out there and have a good night.